Today we're going to be talking about power. We're going to be talking about our grading grid, and what's the last thing? We're going to be talking about development systems and rep teams. Welcome to episode 17 of Run It Straight. All right, very quickly, a little bit of housekeeping. We haven't done many of these episodes for a while. We're going to be trying to pump these out every week now, moving forward. So this is officially season 3 of Run It Straight, episode 17, like I said. Let's jump straight in. Question 1. I've read the most important quality for a rugby league player is power, but I've also seen videos where strength coaches say that strength is the most important quality. I'm confused. Should I work on power or strength first? I can understand why you're confused. There's so much stuff out there these days with social and whatnot. A little bit more detail would be helpful for us to have some context for where you're at with your training. But it's unfortunately it's one of those things where it all depends. So with League Fit, with our academy, we assess both strength and power in our initial battery of tests whenever a new player comes in. And that gives us an idea of where they're at and where to work. Sometimes you do see kids that are strong but not powerful. Sometimes you see kids that are powerful but not strong. And so that does give us an idea where it is that we need to work. And we've got sort of standardized norms that we're looking for. So we know, for your age, for your playing position, your size, your body weight, your height, those kinds of things, we've got expectations about where you would be at. And then that allows us to program around that. Strength, loosely defined, is the ability to produce maximum force on an external resistance, whereas power is producing force, as much force as possible, in the shortest amount of time. So strength is about overcoming resistance, power is about overcoming resistance with speed. So the two things, strength and speed, come together for power. So we want to be working on both of those facets. So if you get stronger, typically your power goes up. As you're improving one part of the equation, which is the expression of force, and vice versa. But in saying that, we typically, as we've mentioned before, we take people coming in, once we've tested them, most people go through some form of general preparation or structural balance, where we look at ironing out kinks, deficiencies between left and right sides of the body, between agonist and antagonist. But there is no reason necessarily why you can't work on both at the same time, why you can't get stronger and also work on your power development. But again, without more detail, so knowing your age, knowing your training age, which is a completely separate thing. So you might be 16 years of age, but your training age, it could be 6 months, and that's how long you've been training. And again, it's how long you've been training properly. If you've just been mucking around at home with some of your dad's weights, or you've been going to the gym with your mates and you've been doing stuff that's not necessarily productive, we might say that your training age is 0. But you could compare that to a kid who started when he was 14, and so he's had 12 months when he was 14, when he was 15, when he was 16. So he could be 2.5, 3 years in. His training age is very different, and that's going to change what our prescription looks like. Your training age is important. Where you are within the season, if there's 5 games left in the season, working on power at that point is you're probably not going to be the most beneficial thing. You're probably better off looking at, let's build the foundation and work from there to make the next season your best season. What you're currently doing in your program, all of those things factor in, which, like I said, it makes it difficult for us to give more specific advice. Chris, anything you want to?
Yeah, I just want to elaborate a little bit on what you said about building a foundation. So before we start talking about strength and power, you need to look at your foundation as the most important thing, because if you don't have that, I wouldn't necessarily go into any kind of strength or power training. So again, more detail, looking at assessing you, going through and seeing where your weaknesses are and moving forward from there. But essentially, the main thing is you need to build a strong foundation, structural balance programming, go through left and right limbs, try to even that out as much as you can. Then you progress to, you would say, more of a hypertrophy-based program, which leads into a strength-based program, which then leads into a power-based
Yeah,
program.
and that's the progression that we normally use. It's
Yep.
it's you got to build your foundation on rock, not on sand, as the saying goes.
Yep.
And if you just jump in and if you literally, if you haven't trained before and you're like, okay, I've got to get my strength up because I'm weak, you put massive plates on, the heavy dumbbells, whatever it is, you're a very, very high risk of getting injured, and your progress is not going to, it's not going to progress at the rate at which it could. You need to build up your work capacity. You need to get your ligaments and your tendon in your bodies used to load, and you need to lifting. I think sometimes it gets neglected. People don't think of it as a skill. And it is a skill. The same way that you've got to learn to pass the ball from left to right, you've got to throw a 6 o'clock pass, you've got to throw a spiral pass, you've got to work on your grip, you've got to work on your offload. They're all skills that need to be developed, and you just need to perform rep after rep after rep to get better at them. Training in the gym is no different than that. And the same way you don't go and try and accomplish some extremely complicated, you don't grab a 7-year-old who's playing under sevens and you're teaching them to pull someone underneath for an X, run a block play, and then throw a 15-meter spiral. You're just trying to get them to be able to throw and catch a ball. And it's the same way when someone comes in, like we said, training age, that's why that's important, is you can't just throw someone on a heavy bar and, let's just go for it. Their body starts to break down.
Yeah. Just one more thing I'll throw in there, so that it's a bit more relatable to the boys watching. Something as simple as a bench press. If we're talking about going to power straight away when your rotator cuffs aren't strong enough, your chest is the prime mover for that movement, and it would have to stabilize the bar as well as push the bar. So you're going to be a lot weaker when it comes to that movement. So in terms of training power, you're not getting the most out of that. So if we break it down and go through our structural balance programming, is what we mentioned earlier, we strengthen those rotators so they're strong enough to actually hold that weight. So then when you are pushing the bar, the chest, the prime movers are only focusing on moving the weight rather than balancing the bar. So hence your weight would be much higher, and you can get a better power output.
Yep.
Better end result. So that's something a bit more relatable for you.
All right, question number 2. I've seen some posts on Insta about your grading grid thing. Is it like a report card with a pass-fail type of thingy? It's a thingy. Chris?
Our grading system is something that both Joe and I are quite proud of. One of the main things that we try to achieve by getting this set up is essentially testing every aspect of football, not just in gym. So it covers everything from strength, power, mobility, tackle technique, ball skills, did I say speed?
Yeah, so what we've tried to do as much as possible is break rugby league down into essentially, if you want to think of it, athletic or physical prep qualities and skill qualities, firstly. And then we've looked to categorize and quantify each of those, which is the challenging thing, which is putting a number to it. And then we've lined those up with the player's age and development level. So we know from a 14-year-old development level player right through to Harold Matts, SG Ball, Flegg Cup, NRL, where they should be at across those 12 different categories. We've come up with means of testing those categories, so it's a system that we can then, that we can test the kids, and the kids, rather than holding them, oh, this guy bench presses that, or that guy bench presses, forget about that. Let's look at if you're a rep level player, this is what the norms should be. These are the numbers that we want to strive to reach. Yeah.
But it's essentially creating an overall footballer rather than who's the strongest in the gym.
Yeah, because it was one of the things that we found is, it's one of those old sayings is what gets measured gets managed, right? And we've got our record board in the gym, and we've got a few different lifts and a few different numbers there. I think we do have the only field thing that we have on there is the sprint.
10-meter sprint.
The 10-meter sprint. And the boys work really, really hard because they want to get their name on the chalkboard, and they've always used that as a guide, and it worked really well. But what we found is that every time that we test, the areas, and oftentimes it was only the areas where we did the in-depth testing and we looked at, we saw massive jumps. But where we don't have the things that are up on the board, like if we looked at, say, conditioning, whether it was a beep test or the Bronco, we found that because that wasn't up on the chalkboard and the boys weren't always looking at it, they weren't putting the time and the effort into it the same way that they should. We found that even though we get really, really good results when it comes to body composition, lowering body fat, building lean tissue, a lot of the boys found it hard to get something or to have something tangible that they could focus on. So by giving them, forwards, backs, age, we have a body fat percentage that we're looking to get those guys to. Now it's like, okay, if I want to grade, if I want to get to that next level, I need to get my body fat under 18%.
And I think the most important thing is as well, it's giving them a realistic goal that they can achieve.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at what the first grade numbers are and saying, I'm so
100%.
far off.
It lets them know where they are compared to a standard for someone their age who is looking to play rep football, which is obviously the goal of most of the guys that come into our program. Whether that's now or that's in 3 years' time, they want to make a rep side and they want to see how far they can go with their footy.
And most importantly, there's a certain amount of numbers you need to hit for each level to actually grade to qualify. So you can't just focus on your weights and do none of the ball skill work or defense or conditioning, because you won't grade the next level.
So we've got, there's 12 different areas that we assess, and for the first 2 levels on the grading grid, you need to hit 8 out of that 12 to grade. For the next 2 levels, you need to hit 9 out of that 12 to grade, and for the final 2, you need to hit 10 out of that 12. So again, it's like if you think of like your report card at school, you can't just get 3 A's and think, oh, well, I've got 3 A's in the important ones, I'll get F's and everything else. You're not going to pass, you're not going to grade, you're not going to move up. So like he was said, it gives us targets to shoot for within a tangible enough time frame. This is one of the reasons why we test or grade, as we call it, every 12 weeks. We found that 12 weeks is long enough. We can fit 4 3-week cycles in that. It's long enough for them to actually progress towards a goal, but it's not too long that they lose focus of where they are. Once we've done the grading and we tell the boys, this is what you've come up, you've got 6 of the 12, you need to get another 2 to pass to grade as a level green, which is the basic level. If we give them those 2 or 3, it's like, okay, it's 12 weeks, it's 10 weeks, it's 9 weeks. They count it down and we've got it written in the gym so that it shows, 7 weeks at the moment. When we're filming this, it says 4 weeks until the next grading, so we'll be grading again soon. So the boys they come in, they look at what those numbers are, they get their calculator, they're like, well, what do I need to run in this? What do I need to get my body fat? How good does my passing need to be? And so it really keeps them focused on what they do. And the grid itself also, there's so many aspects to why it works, and it's working fantastically well. Yep. Just like in martial arts, when someone moves up a belt, this allows us to acknowledge the hard work, the dedication that the kids that have gotten graded have put in, the hard work that they've done, the dedication that they've shown, and it gives the players a tangible representation of what it is that have accomplished. So when they come in, they wear a wristband, their clipboard that they use, the stopwatch that they use, all of those things are color-coded to the grade. So if they're ungraded, it's pink. Everything that they're using is pink. But then a guy walks in and he's got all the green stuff. New kid comes into the gym and he's like, oh, wow, what's that guy done? And then he looks up on the wall where we've got a plaque for every kid who gets graded. They go up on the wall, whether it's green, it's red, it's blue, orange, purple, black. And they'll look up there and they'll see some of the numbers that kid hit. They'll see what date it was. It's like, okay, this kid got graded when he was 15. This was his Bronco for his conditioning. This was what he back squatted for 3 reps. This was his tackle efficiency percentage. And so those older kids, the ones that are graded in the gym, oftentimes they're the ones to give some of the best advice and encouragement to the younger guys. Like, I was like you, but I just had to tighten my food up. I had to get my skin folds down. It's not that hard. So it shows the younger guys this is what you want to strive for, and some of the older or the more experienced or the more developed guys are able to help some of those younger players as well.
One of the things that I like that it's actually done as well, it's helped bridge the gap between the boys that are naturally talented and the ones that actually put the hard work in, the extra work in. Because like I said, if you're naturally talented, you'll be killing a few different areas of the testing, but not necessarily all of them to be able to grade to the next level. So you do need to put some work in to be able to continue grading up the charts.
Absolutely. One of the boys, I won't say his name, but he if I say this, some of the boys will know who he is. We call him Manchild. Ridiculously strong across a whole, there's probably 5 things that we grade where he's just next level. But there's some other areas, mobility, which is absolutely horrible and needs to be, and it just hasn't been a focus. But even he's looked and he's like, I want a grade. It's like, well, we've got to go and start to do the pay attention to the areas where you're not strong, where you're not naturally strong. We've got some guys who can squat and bench press some really, really good weights, but when it comes to the conditioning side of things, you know, for the Bronco, I think it's 515 they need to get under, or he needs to get under in particular.
Yeah.
And he needs to run it at 515, and he's currently running it at a 540. And it's like, you know, it's fantastic that you can squat and bench that much weight, but rugby league is a field-based sport. It's not a strength-based sport. So the strength is just one particular aspect. You've also got to have the conditioning to be able to do what you need to do on the field. So this really does. It just continually brings them back. It shows, look, this is right now, this is the weakest link in the chain. This is the anchor or the ball and chain that's holding you back. We've got to improve this area. Yep, you're naturally gifted here. These areas are dragging down. We've got to get them up. We get them up, then this area is going to be, you're really going to be able to see what you can do.
And look, it can be intimidating when you say, well, you know, we are going to do all this testing to expose all your weaknesses. But at the end of the day, if you want to improve as a player, it's vital to know what your weaknesses are and actually set a target to work on those weaknesses instead of working just on your strengths. So I think that's one of the most important things is if you want to go up the chain, become a rep player, move forward, and eventually make first grade, is super important to start working or acknowledging, identifying, and working on your weaknesses.
Yeah, 100%. Hope that answers your question about our, grading type thingy. Okay, next question, question 3. I get confused with all the different level of reps. Sydney Shield, Ron Massey. I'm playing under 18s and getting better each year, but I'm a bit of a late bloomer and I don't know where to go after this year if I don't make SG ball. Okay, so for anyone who this is maybe the first time that they're looking at this and they know they want to make reps but they're not really sure, most of the clubs in Sydney now have development level programs that are starting at around about under 14s. A couple of years, obviously when COVID hit, they changed some of the ages that these development level programs start at. Harold Matts used to be under 16s, and that was the first where there's an official competition that runs. So the way that this essentially works is most of the junior clubs, they'll play their seasons and they'll have their grand finals usually sort of the last weekend in August, first weekend in September. And then depending on the district, you know, you could be in Canterbury, you could be in Balmain, St George, Parramatta, Cronulla, Norths, Manly, Wests, whatever division it is that you're in. Some of them have open trials, and so they may just say, okay, you know, let's say St George is going to have open trials. It's going to be at Todd Park on, I don't know, the 29th of September, right? So then you send in an application, generally speaking, that gets confirmed, and they're like, okay, we've got 100 boys that are trialing. We're going to break them up into 4 teams or whatever. Everyone's going to get 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever it is. You rock up, you trial based off of the trial, and obviously they've already got an idea of people that they want to have in that squad, but they might be looking to fill them. Maybe they're looking for, you know, a big, tall winger. Maybe they're looking for a fast fullback. Maybe they need, you know, a little more grunt. They're looking for some big bodies in the middle. I don't know what it is, but they may already have in their mind, you know, 15 or 20 guys, and they may be looking to pick another 15 or 20 guys to take into an initial squad. That squad will then train from typically kind of the start of November, and they'll train November, December, January, and they'll train right through, and then they will have a rep program which is going to start at some point. Typically it's first weekend in February, and it's going to run, what are they, 9 rounds?
It's about 9 rounds.
9, 10 rounds. And it'll run from February, March, April, and then if this day they'll have semi-finals. And so those rep programs, the way that works is typically the Sydney clubs plus Canberra, Newcastle, Illawarra is separate with St George at that level. Wests is separate from Balmain at that level. Whoever makes the semis, they'll play a semi-final series. The boys go through, season's done. They then go back to their junior clubs, and then they play out the rest of that season. Now that works like that for Harold Matthews, which is now under 17s, and SG Ball, which is under 19s. Now there is a 2-year age gap, but if a player is talented enough, good enough, gifted enough, they can play a year early. So you might have a kid who is a year young and he still gets picked in Harold Matts. We've got a few boys that have gone through that, both with Matts and with SG Ball. We've got a few that are looking at it this year, hopefully coming through. So they may get picked a year young, and that means that they get 2 years in that system. They'll get when they're a year young, and then they'll get it when it's their actual age. So the way that works, 17s, Howard Mats. Under 19s is SG Ball. Both of those have sort of a mini rep season at the start of the year. Prior to that, some of the clubs are now starting to do development for 13s and 14s, and they may organise 1 or 2 games against some of the other clubs, but it's not a full-length season. The full-length season starts with the 17s and the 19s. Now, in saying 17s and 19s, the way that works is it's their 17s the year of the rep season. So typically it's the under 15s and the under 16s. So this year, 2022, anyone who's playing under 15s and anyone who's playing under 16s is eligible to get picked in the Howard Mats, which when they actually play their games in February of 2023 will be under 17s. Does that make sense? And so it's the same. So if you want to play SG Ball, which is under 19s, you would need to be playing this year under 17s or under 18s. Once they've done that, once you've finished your SG Ball season, the next stage is Jersey Flag. And Jersey Flag, again, just like with COVID, it used to be 16s, 18s, 20s, and now it's 17s, 19s, 21s. They wanted to move it up because they didn't want a whole generation of kids to miss out on their rep spot that they'd earned. You know, they played footy for 10, 15 years. They wanted to give them that shot. So Jersey Flag has now moved to under 21s. Now, Jersey Flag is a full-length season. So those squads that get picked in a similar fashion to the Harold Mats and the SG Ball, but a lot of them don't necessarily have open trials. They'll have an idea by that point who it is that they want to pick. Some kids might be given a train and trial contract, so when they do start training in November, they'll let them train November, December, January, and then they might have trial games the end of January through February, and they might cut some of those guys, then they'll pick their squad. And then that squad pretty much, that Jersey Flag competition, it mimics the length of the NRL. I think they might start maybe like a week or two after, but they're generally going to be playing somewhere between, depending on the teams, but somewhere between 16 and 20, 21 games right throughout that season. And again, that's the last of the age-limited competitions. The next direct level that moves up from that is New South Wales Cup, which is open age. And again, if you've got a kid who's, not that I would say a kid, if you've got a young man who's playing Jersey Flag and he's 20 or 21 and he's doing well, the club might look to offer him a contract that extends out for another year or two. He's not necessarily in the NRL squad, he's not in the top 30, but it's New South Wales Cup or the old-fashioned reserve grade contract, which is obviously just the level below NRL. So then he might then move up and he might play a year or two, look to develop, look for an opportunity, and then hopefully get a crack at being able to get an NRL contract. So essentially, 14-year-olds, we have development. At 14 to 15, there's development. Then we have Harold Mats, which is under 17s, SG Ball, which is under 19s, Jersey Flag, which is 21s, New South Wales Cup, or reserve grade, which is open age, and then obviously the NRL. Now, there's kind of like a parallel rep level system that exists along with this, but it's, you know, if you've got Mats, Ball, Flag, reserve grade, and Cup, off to the side here, we have this parallel system, which is Sydney Shield and Ron Massey Cup. Now, Sydney Shield and Ron Massey Cup are both open age competitions. There's a whole range of clubs around Sydney. Most of them, they're bigger junior development clubs. So, you know, if you look at Wentworthville, if you look at Cabramatta, if you look at Glebe, Ryde Eastwood, Moorebank, I'm trying to think of a few of the others. There's actually been a few less teams the last 2 years, again, because of COVID and getting the funding. Those players sign contracts to play at that level. They get paid, some of them not very much. Some of those clubs actually pay very well. Sydney Shield is the level below, and then Ron Massey is the level above. What we're finding now is a lot of the NRL clubs are aligning themselves with a Sydney Shield team. They're aligning themselves with a Ron Massey team. And so that the way that works is Jersey Flag, like we said, is under 21s. If you've got but you might have a squad of 25 players. They're going to take 18, maybe 19 to a game. So you might still have 5 or 6 or 7 players who aren't going to play Jersey Flag that week. And the club, whoever they're affiliated with in Sydney Shield, so let's say it's the Bulldogs, who currently they're affiliated with Moorebank, they will send 6 or 7 or 8 players to go and play Sydney Shield that weekend with Moorebank. So that Sydney Shield level is quite a fairly strong level because it's loaded with, there's a lot of rep players that they're looking just to develop a little bit more until they get their opportunity in Flag. What we also see is if we have a kid who's playing Jersey Flag, SG Ball under 19s, and like we said, their season finishes sort of that April, May, and they're like, well, do I just go back to playing junior club football? The senior club, again, let's say it's Canterbury, they might say, we want you to go to Moorebank and we want you to play, to trial and to play Sydney Shield for them because it's a higher level. And so that's another level of development where you get some SG ball guys go up and you get some Jersey Flegg guys come down. Then we look at Ron Massey. So some clubs will progress and they will have a Sydney Shield and a Ron Massey. Bright Eastwood is a club that has that. So they have both a Shield and a Massey. And what you often find is that the Massey is a spill-off for New South Wales Cup. So a lot of the clubs who have got some players that are signed for Cup, but maybe for whatever reason they're not playing. Usually the main reason is because most NRL squads they've got 30 players currently, that's what it is. Yep. They've got 30 players in their NRL roster, but 17 are going to play. You're going to have an 18th man for HIA, and then they usually do travel with a 19th in case someone hurts himself in the warm-up. But then that means you've got another 11 players who move down and they'll play New South Wales Cup, they'll play reserve grade. That might then mean that you might have 4 or 5 players in reserve that are contracted reserve grade players, but while those NRL players are all available, they might not get a game. They will go and play Ron Massey Cup. Now, a Ron Massey Cup squad might be made up of guys that are contracted just to play Ron Massey, plus the reserve grade or the New South Wales Cup players who come down and play at that level as well. Okay, so there's guys that are contracted just for Ron Massey, but then there's guys that are in Cup. But again, that Ron Massey is a pathway. If you're playing in that level and you're playing with reserve grade players and you're dominating and you're doing well, that NRL club's looking at you thinking, maybe we should give him a Cup contract. Maybe we can move him across the chain into the club's actual line. And you go and you play 2, 3, 10, 15 games of reserve grade. That's when you get the opportunity. It's like, this kid's doing well. Maybe he gets a shot in the NRL. So it's another progression pathway. It's definitely, and that pathway, I think you're going to find some things coming out in the next 6 to 12 months that pathway is getting more developed. A lot of the Sydney clubs now, even rather than just aligning themselves with a Sydney Shield, are actually putting their own Sydney Shield and looking at putting their own Ron Massey. I know the Roosters have a Sydney Shield, their own Sydney Shield side, and I know there's a few other Sydney clubs that are looking at doing something similar.
That's good news for the boys.
Yeah, which is fantastic. It just means that there's a whole lot more areas for. So if you don't make an SG ball side, we've talked about this before. Of players who make the NRL, yes, most do play SG ball, but it's like 58%. So you're looking at 42% of NRL players. The first rep football they played was as a 19, a 20, or a 21-year-old. Okay, so there are other pathways, and the big thing is if you persist, if you keep training, like you said here, that you're a late bloomer. If you stay in the system, because this is the way I like to explain it to the boys. When you get to say 19 years of age or 20 years of age, if you can get yourself into a system where you've got Sydney Shield, where you've got Ron Massey Cup, at that age, life starts to happen. People get jobs, people get careers, people get girlfriends, people start to go out, party, drink, whatever it is on the weekends. They get other priorities, and that's fine. That is what it is. But if you're someone who wants to really, squeeze every little bit of juice out of the lemon, you want to see what you're capable of doing. The thing is, if you keep training, you keep working on yourself, you keep upskilling, you keep looking at areas to improve within your game, a lot of the guys that you're competing against, they just start to drop out. They lose the fire, they lose the passion for it, they start eating and drinking, their body's not in the shape that it once was, and you start to go past. So, when you're 17, there might be 50 guys that you're competing against for your position. If you stay in the game, by the time you're 20, that 50 guys, that might be down to 8. And if you're putting in the work that we talk about, if you're putting in your 20 and your 30 hours a week of training, instead of a 1 in, it ends up being like a 1 in 3 opportunity that you're going to get a shot at going all the way. And these other systems, these other pathways do provide an avenue for you to get there, even if it's not necessarily in a straight line.
Yeah. Just to touch on that as well, the most important thing is to stay in touch with football. So it can be demotivating at times if you don't make those rep levels, but like Joe was saying, it's very important that you stay in touch with the game. One of the main things that I can say is don't take a year off footy. If you do take a year off footy just to focus on your training,
it's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's done. Even if you do come back, it's going to be tough. So stay in touch with footy. Stick at those levels, even if you're not in, like I said, Haramats SG Ball, you're playing Shield and Massey, and give yourself every opportunity that you can to move forward.
Yeah, and look, 100%. We see so many parents, my kid hasn't made Harold Mats and he's 16. Should he give up the game? And
Definitely not.
For us, obviously we need to contain ourselves. It's like, hell no. Like, he's just getting started. Literally, just let it play out. He's just getting started. This is when, if you put in more work now, this is when everyone else starts to fall by the wayside. Just keep working at it. And I'll tell you what, regret will burn through people, and we've seen it no end. I'll tell you this much, if you can get to 30 years of age, for whatever reason, let's say that you put 100%, you gave it everything that you had, maybe you end up in Shield, maybe you get to Massey, you play a game of Cup or whatever it is. But if you give it everything that you had, you don't make it, you're going to be able to sit there for the next 50 or 60 years of your life saying, you know what, I don't really have any regrets, I gave it everything that I had and it just didn't happen. But if you were gifted, if you were talented, or even if you're just average talent and you're like, oh no, it's too hard, I'm not going to, you give up, you're going to regret that for the rest of your life, 100%. We've seen so many people that have done it. Oh, I wish I just stayed in a year or two because, this guy and this guy and this guy, I was so much better than them, but then I dropped off at 17 or at 18 or at 19, and then they just gone, oh, I can't believe that guy's playing in the NRL. I used to, how many times have we heard, like, bro, he's trash. I used to smash him. Like, I would own him. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? He stuck at it and you didn't. It's what's the thing with the fast animal? The turtle and the hare. Is that what it is? The tortoise and the hare. That the race goes to, not to the swift, but to those who keep on running. So that's the best advice that we can give you. There are pathways that are out there.
Yes.
Keep training, find coaches, find mentors, find people that have gone down that path. Get a really good S&C. Get some good field coaches. Go and do work with sprint coaches. Talk to nutritionists. Keep working on your game. Even don't just rock up and play for the same club every year. If you want to move from playing lock to hooker because you're short, and we've seen that happen plenty of times, don't stay at the same club that every year they're going to play you at lock. Leave. It's going to be uncomfortable. Yeah, it's going to suck. Go to another club where you can play in the position that you feel that you're better to play in. Talk to the coach. Ask questions. How can I get better? What can I do? Get video footage of your game. Look at your position. Look at what it is that you're doing. Go and watch the NRL. The games are everywhere. They're even up on YouTube after the fact now. Go and watch the really good hookers, watch what they do. The second rowers, wingers, whatever position it is that you're playing. Just go to actual games, because that's even better than watching it on TV. Because obviously, the camera's focusing where the action is. Go to a game. If you want to get better at football, go to every Roosters game and watch Tedesco. Just look at what he's doing. Look at who he's talking to. Walk up and down the field. I used to do that. It's a bit weird, but hey, it is what it is. Walk up and down the side and just follow the game. Let everyone else sit on the hill and just enjoy it as a spectacle. You just go in there and you study and you watch, where is he on the first tackle? Where is he on the second tackle? Who is he talking to? What's he doing in defence? Who is he directing? How loud is he yelling? All of those things are they're all things that you can work on. They're all tangible things that you can do to give yourself the best opportunity to be the best rugby league player that you possibly can.
To sum it all up, find the right guidance, the right coaching staff, the right strength coaches, speed coaches, so forth. Stick at the game. Don't take time off if it's really what you want to do. Doesn't matter if you're going through the Shield and Massey system or you're going through Haramats SG Ball.
Flag.
Just stick at it. Keep training hard, and eventually you will get your shot. Yeah,
the pathways are there. You've got to use your voice. You've got to ask the questions. You've got to push your name forward. But if you stay in the fight. Okay, you stay in the fight, things will eventually start to turn your way. And that's the last of that one. So guys, if you could please follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, although it's probably only your parents that are on Facebook these days. Like the video wherever it is that you happen to see it. If you have questions, please send them in. We have lots of answers, but we need the questions. Again, try and make the questions as detailed. Give us as much context about you as you possibly can, so we can get a little bit more detailed and more specific, which is only going to help you out more. And any question, doesn't matter what angle you're coming from. Our whole goal is to make you guys as good a footballers as you can be, and make your next game your best game, make your next season your best season. We will see you in episode. What was this? Was 17, wasn't it? We will see you in episode 18. Cheers.